Like all fields, there are certain philosophies, principles, and ethics that guide the information sciences profession. I have had an intimate amount of time to engage with each of these, and though some have resonated with me more than others, as I'm sure is the case for everyone else who has ever studied anything, I have a grasp on the values of all three, and can identify examples of each that will exemplify them. Perhaps the most valuable philosophy of the work I concluded this program with was found in my reflection of the readings by Lear and Evans for my LIS 650 class. It was the notion that leadership in the field is, to reference the old adage of greatness, not so often an inborn goal or one achieved through hard work, but it is instead very often something that is thrust upon the information professional. Lear and Evans noted that management positions were something that was not often a place many students of the library science programs thought they would end up, and that it just happens to them. What this means for me is both terrifying and exciting. The potential for me to be in a leadership role in whatever library or area of service my career lands me, and all the responsibilities and duties that come with it. I express very few of my own opinions in the reflection in question, but I do leave off with one in the conclusion of the paper, talking about how one should always be prepared for the unexpected in the leadership field. In hindsight, however, I feel a more apt conclusion can be drawn from what Evans and Lear said, and that is that the information professional should always strive to act in their profession as if they were a leader. Adopting this philosophy of leadership means two things. Firstly, it means that the quality of my own work will need to and will rise to the occasion to better represent whatever institution I serve. And secondly, it means I will be better equipped in the case that my promotion to leadership in the field, as Levins and Elias put it, just happens. Being a professional does not mean that one has to be a leader. But holding yourself to the standards of a leader will mean that you are always striving to give the best possible performance, a clear benefit to all parties involved. That is why it is a valuable philosophy for the field. This also represents a philosophy of self-improvement, of constantly striving to find new ways to better yourself in your field, a self-explanatory good for both a self, institution, and patron. As a short side note, while I dismiss my original philosophy of preparedness in the previous paragraph, it is still a valuable way of thinking in order to help avoid unpleasant surprises in the field. Gaining a position of authority, to some extent, in one's chosen career may not be inherently unpleasant. I see it as a new wave of challenges and obstacles, and being suddenly thrust into that position unprepared will only mean that I am unable to properly fulfill whatever duties I have placed upon me. I hope to one day find myself in such a position. I hope that it does not come before I have been able to properly prepare myself for the role through my work elsewhere in the field. Thankfully, however, I believe my experiences through this program have prepared me aptly for much of what I will find in the more entry and general work in the field. What I have learned on the principles of information science is more simply put: be polite, be efficient, have a plan to help everyone you meet. More bluntly put, I've learned what I believe to be three core principles of professionalism that are especially applicable to the information sciences field. Though it was merely a mock situation, my interview with a patron, actually the professor of my LIS 620 course, and the discussions leading up to it highlighted for me the value each of the prior mentioned principles have to the work we do. Speed and quality go hand in hand, as does having a rough framework of how to go about this, and being courteous to the patron is simply a must. We are there to provide service to them, and it is our duty to do so with the utmost respect for the patron, as is required of any service industry. My earlier talk of the philosophy of preparedness also comes into play here, as though the specifics of what the interview would be about were left in the dark, appropriate for what it was meant to simulate, I still have the opportunity to familiarize myself with the online tools, JSTOR, EBS-CO, and others, that I would make use of. Knowing one's available resources is another tool that is not only of great assistance, but is ultimately mandatory to success in the field. And I am pleased to say that I am very well acquainted with them now. The last point I can address here is the matter of ethics and information science, and is intimately connected with my beliefs mentioned in the beginning of this. I am not sure where my stance on the ethics of the actions of information professionals began before these courses, but I know where it rests now. It is not my place or any information professional's place to determine what should or shouldn't be available. This particular view was brought up frequently in prior classes, but it was truly hammered into me during my LIS 604 course, in which I reviewed Ekholm's Political Censorship in Finnish Libraries from 1944 to 1946, and was dismayed particularly by the ideas of librarians taking censorship matters into their own hands, only due to the fact they believed if they didn't, they would be ordered to anyway. This is the antithesis of how a librarian or information professional in general should approach their work. They should fight for the right to be seen of information on their shelves, not counter those I would wish it gone. I expressed similar views in my LIS 600 class when asked to review the American Library Association's Code of Ethics. It was the second and third statements, which dealt with the right to intellectual freedom and the right to privacy, respectively, that really stood out to me as I responded to classmates. I applauded the professionalism that the LAA's Code of Ethics represented, but there is so much more to it, especially the specific two previously mentioned, than that. They stand against the exact type of censorship I lamented in talking about Ekholm's article, and for that same good reason I previously identified. To embrace censorship is the antithesis of what this field stands for. To summarize, I have learned and worked towards integrating philosophies of leadership, self-improvement, and preparedness into my professional stances in order to ensure I am providing the best possible output and am always ready to tackle whatever my career may thrust me into. I've learned how the principles of professionalism are key to the success of any information science institution, and that the professional needs to ensure that the goals of the field are met. And most importantly, in my eyes, I have learned the ethics of the field, in particular, and perhaps greatest of all, how the rights of intellectual freedom of the patrons should not be infringed on for any reason.